Hi friends, Etheria here, and today I want to talk about some mostly easy ways you can enhance your screenshots in Final Fantasy XIV. For a really long time, I was very confused about why my screenshots looked honestly kind of bad and everyone else's looked amazing. I used to see all these screenshots on Twitter and even just from friends and FC mates in Discord, and I always wondered, why do theirs look so crisp but mine don't? I would literally go and check the settings in my game because I thought maybe my settings were the problem, but they were literally always on max. If you've ever felt the same way, then I have an explanation for you. The reason that people's screenshots look so crisp and nice is because they are using third-party tools, okay? They're not using vanilla. And some people are even going so far as to edit their screenshots in Photoshop. So don't be fooled, it has nothing to do with your settings. I've always wanted to take better screenshots, but frankly, I'm lazy. For me, G-posing is not a hobby, and it's really not something I'm personally interested in spending a lot of my time doing. No shade to those who love it, it's just not really for me. But I was definitely tired of all of my screenshots looking so blurry and honestly just bad. So my goal with this video is to help lazy people like myself take screenshots that look nice without having to put a lot of time into it. I will be going over each type of program that is available to you to enhance your screenshots, as well as how you can enhance even vanilla screenshots, so no tools at all. I think this video will be helpful both to people who relate with the things I said, so if you're lazy like me, or people who are interested in getting into G-pose as a hobby, but maybe are still beginning and have no clue how people are taking the really beautiful screenshots that they're taking. So there's a lot to cover and it's difficult to figure out exactly where to start, but I think I'm going to start with vanilla screenshots. So screenshots using no outside tools at all. And even if you are willing to use tools, I would still recommend watching this part of the video because I'm going to be offering some general advice that I do think could be helpful to everyone. So how can you improve vanilla screenshots? To be completely honest with you, I think the vanilla experience is kind of awful. The main reason is that the colors feel incredibly washed out and the features of your character are kind of blurry. But if you absolutely refuse to use any type of third-party software at all, which by the way, one of them I will be recommending is Nvidia, so hold your horses on deciding not to use any, but if you don't even want to use that, you're just never going to have screenshots that look as good as those being taken by people who are using third-party tools. I'm sorry, it's just not possible. However, that said, there are still things you can do to improve your screenshots even without third-party tools. So, especially if you're going vanilla, then you want to pay attention to the built-in filters and effects that the game has. The filters can change the color profile of your screenshot, allowing you to give the screenshot a different mood or just help the colors pop. I'm a big fan of Bright 1 for that reason. There are also some nice effects like particles, which are just sparkles, or sakura petals, which I love to use if I'm taking a screenshot in an area with, well, flowers or cherry blossoms. And you'll see people, even people using third-party tools, sometimes using these effects in their screenshots because some of them are honestly really nice. You may also want to consider factors like your outfit and your pose. You don't necessarily have to match your outfit to the backdrop, but doing so can help create a more cohesive and polished-looking screenshot. Similarly, having your character do some sort of pose instead of just standing there straight with a blank face can also help bring screenshots to life. They tend to look more intentional. That's not to say that using your favorite idle pose is going to make for a terrible screenshot. I think I've taken some cute ones with idle poses, but posing can help. There are also third-party tools for posing, but I'll speak more on those later. The most important tip I have to give you for taking vanilla screenshots and maybe even taking these screenshots in general is about how to set up your lighting in-game. So this is going to make a huge difference in your screenshots, regardless of whether or not you're using third-party tools. And I'm going to be honest, setting up lighting isn't really that easy, at least for me. It's something that I still feel like I'm learning, and I feel like it takes a bit of practice. So that's why I said this is mostly easy ways to improve your screenshots. There is a lot of artistic liberty you can take with lighting as well. However, because I'm trying to make this video as easy and simple as possible, I'm going to give you a rule of thumb for lighting, and I'm also going to share some resources on how to set up lighting in the description of this video. So my rule of thumb is this: a light in front, a light in back, and a light off to one side. You can pick which side. So I personally like to use the level 3 lights, these are the brightest ones, and set them rather far away from the character. Now, when it comes to the lighting 1, 2, and 3, you'll notice that 1 is the least bright and 3 is the brightest, and which you use is partially up to preference, and this is where it really comes into the just kind of practice thing, just practicing and seeing which looks the best. But the reason that I often like to use the level 3 lights and set them far away is because I really dislike the pool of light that is caused when you set up the lights. Like if you just put the lights on the ground and you zoom out, you can see these really big pools of lights. And I don't like that to be obvious in my screenshots. So by setting the lights really far away, I'm able to avoid that. However, I do sometimes still use lighting types like 1 just to help light up my character more, but in a subtle way because you don't want to overdo it. So like I said, lighting is probably the hardest part for taking screenshots, and you just have to practice it. But try following this rule of thumb to start with, and I do think your shots will turn out better than they would have if you had just used character lighting or otherwise ignored my advice. I do need to make a couple notes on lighting though. First of all, less is more. It's usually better for your character to be a little bit underlit than overexposed. Secondly, if there is already a bright light hitting your character, say the sun is hitting their face, then you do not need to set a light in front of them because there already is one. And finally, matching the lighting to the color of things around you will help the lights blend in better. So for example, if you're taking a shot at night, which are some of the hardest to take in my experience, these tend to look better if you tint the lights slightly blue. Okay, so now that we have my least favorite part and the hardest part of taking screenshots out of the way, we can talk about the stuff that is fun and far more easy. And so now we're starting to get into third-party tools or programs that you can use for taking screenshots. The first one I want to talk about is Nvidia Filters. If you're skeptical about using third-party tools, then I would say that using Nvidia's filters is a really good compromise that most of you are probably going to be comfortable with doing. The default shortcut to access these is Alt F3, but the menu will only open when your game is running. The reason I love these filters so much is they can make the colors of the game so much richer and more vibrant, and they also can make the game a bit crisper with sharpening. Many people may already have the Nvidia filters installed, just not applied, because many people have Nvidia graphics cards. If you press Alt F3 and find that you do not have them, then you need to go to Google and download the GeForce Experience software. This software essentially helps you update the drivers for your graphics card and has some other features such as shadow play and, of course, what we're talking about in this video, these filters. I'm going to show you my personal settings for the filters, but understand that they may not work perfectly for you because the colors may show up differently on your monitor, and we may also just have different personal preferences on how we like the colors of the game to look. I really like having vibrant and bright colors. I also tend to gravitate towards a more blue temperature than a yellow temperature, and I sincerely feel that the original game looks very washed out in comparison to using these Nvidia filters. So these are my settings. I use Sharpen, Color, and Details. For sharpen, I have the intensity set at 50%, ignore film grain at 39%, then under color, I have tint color 27%, tint intensity 35%, temperature 14.6%, vibrance 40.7%. Under details, I have sharpen at 0%, clarity at 29%, HDR toning at 9%, and bloom at 0. I use these settings both for gameplay and for taking screenshots, and it's important to note that if you are taking a screenshot, you have to press Alt F1, which is the default screenshot hotkey through the Nvidia filters. If you just use the screenshot option within the game, which is usually print screen, then it's not going to take a picture with all the filters applied. You have to take it through the Nvidia software. Unlike most of the third-party software that people are using to mod 14, Nvidia is obviously a well-known company, so I think you can feel secure in using it. I will say that these filters are mostly only going to help you make the game crisper and improve the colors. There is a depth of field feature that can be nice for screenshots, but I would argue that Reshade is better for that sort of thing. The Nvidia depth of field isn't bad, but I do find that it sometimes makes this sort of halo around my character that I don't always like. Obviously, G-Pose itself has depth of field, but it's not as strong as the depth of field offered by the Nvidia filters or by Reshade. That's kind of one of the beautiful things of Reshade is the cool stuff you can do with things like depth of field, which we'll get more into later. But still, if you do not want to use Reshade at all, then these Nvidia filters and the depth of field filter that Nvidia offers can be a good alternative. I personally prefer to use Nvidia's filters over Reshade, even though I'm unable to take screenshots with all the cool effects that Reshade offers. I still think my screenshots do look pretty nice, and I'm happy with how vibrant the colors are, and honestly, how much crisper the screenshots look as compared to just taking vanilla screenshots. I think for me, that was the most important thing, was I just wanted my screenshots to not look so fuzzy, and Nvidia has been able to offer that to me, so it's good enough for my personal preferences and needs. One thing to note about the Nvidia filters is that you should write down your settings in like a Google Doc or something once you have them how you like them. Unfortunately, every single time you update your GeForce experience with the drivers, your filters will get erased. So it's annoying as heck, but as long as you write them down somewhere, it's not that big of a deal. But if you are comfortable with using third-party tools, then it is time to talk about Reshade, which is currently the preferred tool for 14 players. I personally am not interested in using this type of third-party tool, so I'm actually going to include some screenshots from the community who use Reshade. They've been gracious enough to share which Reshade presets or settings that they were using, so if you see something you like, you'll know what it is. Reshade offers a lot more customization than vanilla G-Pose or even the Nvidia filters, so for some of you, it may be worth checking out. If you're on the fence about it due to recent events with Gshade, well, this is what I'll say. Yes, Reshade is a third-party software, so there's always going to be worries about something similar happening as to what happened with Gshade. However, I don't think the worries should be as worrisome. I don't know how to phrase that. Reshade is open source. This means that the code to the software is visible to the public. So it's very unlikely that someone would put something nefarious into the code because others with coding knowledge can easily identify dangerous code and raise a red flag to the rest of the community. You should always take caution when using third-party software, and at the end of the day, the choice to use it or not to use it is entirely yours. But something like Reshade is a safer bet because the code can be easily monitored by the public. So what can Reshade do? Similar to the Nvidia filters, it can help with color correction and vibrance as well as making the game look more crisp and clear. There are many Reshade presets available, some which are meant to simply enhance gameplay and thus are made so as not to slow your PC or your game down, whereas others are all about creating the highest quality screenshots possible and thus could make your game lag. There are so many different filters available with Reshade, it's kind of the sky's the limit. You also have the ability to customize certain things. For example, if you're using a depth of field blur and you have lights or something similar in the background, they'll often turn into these little blurred bubbles. With Reshade, you can customize how big the bubbles are, the shape of them, even the texture or grain of them. You really can do a lot. But remembering that this video is about being lazy, you can also literally just pick a preset you like and it'll do the work for you. You may still have to futz around with the in-game lighting, unfortunately, and I am told that most presets look better if you turn the game's depth of field off. But once you figure out which presets you like, it's really just a matter of turning them on and taking a screenshot. So it really can be an easy, painless way to improve your screenshot game. Also, it's important to note that Gshade was made with Final Fantasy XIV particularly in mind, whereas Reshade was not. So you may need to acquire the shaders from Gshade, and I will also have some resources for that in the description. If you do use Reshade, you may find all of the presets to be a little overwhelming. There's a lot of them to sort through. So hopefully some of the screenshots sent in by our lovely audience will help you see what's available, so you won't have to spend as much time sorting through them all yourself. Now I want to talk about one last thing before I finish this video, and it's another third-party tool called Anamnesis. Anamnesis is not actually going to improve the quality of the game's appearance the way that Nvidia Filters or Reshade do, but it can do quite a lot of things. For the purpose of this video, we're only going to talk about the features that directly affect screenshot taking. So the main way something like Anamnesis can be helpful is that it allows you to change the time and weather. If you want to take a beach shot in the sun, but it's raining, Anamnesis can change that for you. The other thing it's super useful for is posing. You can actually download pose packages from FFXIV mod archive, which I will not be sharing footage of because there are a lot of not safe for work poses that show up there even when you try to filter them out, so we're not doing that. But anyway, you can try to make your own poses in Anamnesis as well, which I personally find really difficult, although some people seem to have a knack for it, but much more easily is just downloading the pose packages from FFXIV archive, which are made by other players and are used in Anamnesis. There are some really cute and unique poses available, so I think it's worth looking into if that's something you're interested in. However, once again, you have to realize that this is a third-party tool that you'll be using at your own risk. Alright, I think that's finally everything. So to sum it all up, if you don't want your screenshots to look like crap, first of all, learn how to light them in G-Pose. Second of all, turn on your Nvidia filters. And if you want even more enhancements, use a tool like Reshade. And that's it. That's it. Why did I just spend 20 minutes talking about that when I could have just said that? Oh well. If you do use Reshade, please tell us in the comment section which preset is your favorite. And if you found this video helpful, please consider leaving a sacrifice to Lord Algorithm in the form of a like, comment, share, or a subscribe. As always, thank you so much for watching. Bye!